Hey y'all, my name's Nikki Hernandez-Yencho and I'm from Belton, Texas. I work in healthcare administration and I'm a 14-year Army veteran and a mom of 4. I love Progress Texas because I believe in the Constitution and the freedoms it's supposed to guarantee to everyone in our nation. It's what I swore an oath to uphold and defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I still take that oath very seriously. Progress Texas is a great way to keep up with things going on at the state and local level that threaten those freedoms, and I believe more people need to hear how those things will affect all of us in the great state of Texas and not just in Washington, D.C. I'm a proud financial supporter of Progress Texas, and I urge all freedom-loving Texans to do the same because it's important for us to stand up for our state and our country, fight disinformation, and continue to fight for freedom. Please consider contributing too.
Thank you so much, Nikki. It's Friday, February 6, 2026, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch, rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. As Texas progressives do their best to focus on the March primary, Republican forces, both here in the state and at the federal level, appear to be preparing an unprecedented attack on the November election in the form of a potentially national-level voter roll purge. Some states, including Minnesota, California, Oregon, about 24 total, are resisting the Trump DOJ's efforts to gain the voter roll information they'll need to conduct those purges. But Texas, as you know, has already handed ours over. James Osborne at the Houston Chronicle says Donald Trump's not even being particularly coy about it, having called for what he calls the nationalization of elections and a so-called cleaning of our voter rolls, led by his own loyalists in D.C., of course, before the November midterms. Trump Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon, yes, the same who wrote to Governor Greg Abbott demanding a redraw of our congressional map last year, claims her efforts are in the cause of ensuring election integrity. But her boss has continued in false assertions that the 2020 election was stolen from him, and raids on the records related to that election in Georgia in recent days would indicate a plan to conduct mass purges and/or to challenge future election results, especially in the case of an expected massive Democratic gain this fall. Voting rights advocates are sounding the alarm that such systemic removals almost always sweep up legitimate voters, especially naturalized citizens, as seen during a failed 2019 attempt here in Texas to purge 100,000 voters. PT regular Emily French, policy director at Common Cause Texas, tells Osborne, quote, if they wanted to, they could flag every voter who was not a natural-born U.S. citizen to try and prove the election was stolen. In 2020, you had Texas legislators flying to Pennsylvania to file lawsuits using unformed, ridiculous theories. They're still ridiculous, but they're forming them now, unquote. At this point, dear listener, confirming and monitoring your personal voter registration, especially if immigration is a factor, if you've moved recently, if you're an out-of-state college student, if the slightest reason to doubt the completely ironclad status of your voter registration exists, you are among the targets of this upcoming purge, and it's up to you individually to fight back. State-level Republicans are doing their part to screw all of this up as well. The Texas Secretary of State's office, known for their lackluster and half-assed online assets as an ongoing example, are certainly doing Texas voters no favors. Natalia Contreras at VoteBeat and the Texas Tribune says Jane Nelson's crew has delayed mailing voter registration certificates due to mid-decade redistricting and glitches in the state's new voter registration system called TEAM. By law, these documents were supposed to be due by December 6th, but many voters remain without them just weeks before the March primary. They're not required for voting, but the certificates do inform citizens of their assigned districts and help election officials identify residents who may have moved. The Secretary of State's office and local officials report that the TEAM system, which was overhauled last July, has struggled to process the massive data uploads required by that recent congressional map redraw, and both Harris and Tarrant counties, big urban centers with massive numbers of likely Democratic voters, have been further delayed by January runoff elections. Election administrators in several Texas counties are warning that they've already run out of time to process returned mail to update poll books before Election Day arrives for the primary on March the 3rd. With Democrats fighting amongst themselves and most of the country struggling with the high cost of living, one might think that Texas Republicans might take advantage and lean into the practical economic issues and concerns that really matter to voters right now. But one would be wrong about that, because the hate and fear of Islam is apparently a much more delicious topic for them. Daniel Perot at KVUE-TV in Austin says the Republican primary across a variety of races has seen a surge in campaign ads targeting what candidates call the Islamification of Texas. Candidates including Aaron Reitz and Congressman Chip Roy, who are both running for Attorney General, have centered their campaign messages on promises to crack down on a supposed spread of Sharia law in the Lone Star State, and they're not alone. Among their fellow Republican office seekers in jumping on that particular bandwagon, Muslim advocacy groups, including CARE, themselves targeted by current Republican elected officials, including Governor Greg Abbott and sitting AG Ken Paxton, as terrorists, correctly frame all of this as dehumanizing publicity stunts that ignore the reality that Muslims make up only about 1.1% of the state's population. Fact is, that's a small enough group to make a perfect scapegoat. Recall back to how weird it seemed that Senator Ted Cruz had dedicated so much of his re-election campaign messaging to the dehumanizing of transgender people, and recall that he won on those messages. The scary fact is that Republican campaign strategy, wild and unhinged as it might seem to the reasonable observer, is in fact the product of extensive and expensive public opinion research. The fact that they're leaning in on Muslim hate as a primary theme tells us that message has been found to resonate with a lot of likely Republican primary voters. We live in a state that is firmly, institutionally, historically infested with racism and xenophobia. It's a fact we'd love to forget, but it's one that progressives and Democrats ignore at our own dire peril. Which leads us to ICE and the thousands of Texas high school and even middle school kids who have been standing up to that hate lately by walking out of class in protest. That trend is continuing. Jenna King at Fox 7 TV in Austin, noting that yesterday we saw walkouts at Idea Runberg College Preparatory, Austin ISD's Betachek Middle School, and several others. The lesson Governor Abbott would teach those kids is that they better be careful with all this freedom of speech stuff. His statement, quote, "You don't have freedom of speech to say and act any way you want to, anywhere you want to, anytime you want." The Supreme Court has been very clear about free speech of students, and that free speech of students does not include leaving the school to go protest. And so by Supreme Court precedent, what they did by leaving school to protest is not protected speech, unquote. Kids, your governor is ready for you to sit down and shut up. Hays County Judge Ruben Becerra, whose jurisdiction has seen many such walkouts and also that widely seen roadside fight between a bunch of kids from Moe and Gene Johnson High School and a MAGA rando meathead motorist, disagrees with the governor. He holds that the protection of the vulnerable and the upholding of the foundational freedoms of speech and peaceful assembly, regardless of viewpoint, are paramount. Becerra says, quote, "I believe that the political theatrics of current leadership should yield because what they are doing is micromanaging independent school districts, school boards, and principals and classrooms. And at the end of the day, the classrooms aren't jails," unquote. And we like this guy. Resistance has been building in North Texas against that proposed massive ICE detention facility in the southeast metroplex town of Hutchins, but it turns out that might just be the tip of the iceberg. Matt Howerton at WFAA in Dallas says San Antonio has also recently seen a large federal warehouse purchase with little to no advance notice to city officials, a 640,000 square foot warehouse off of Loop 410 in San Antonio that'll be used for immigration processing and detention. City leaders there say they were not notified before the purchase was completed. San Antonio Mayor Gina Ortiz-Jones saying, quote, "Nobody wants this in our community. The idea that we would have this in our city is quite troubling. That thing is less than 2 miles from my church," unquote. Meanwhile, ICE facilities are continuing to treat congressional oversight as beneath their own authority. Oregon Live is reporting that Congresswoman Maxine Dexter of that state's 3rd district, which includes most of the Portland area, says she was denied entry at the Dilley Detention Center just yesterday, where she had gone to check on a Venezuelan family, including a 7-year-old girl who have now been held in that increasingly notorious hellhole for 3 weeks now. Yesterday was the 21st day of their captivity, which officially violates a decades-old federal policy stemming from a court settlement that limits the immigration detention of children to no more than 20 days, a policy that appears to mean little to the lawless regime under which we all now live. And yet another item on the long and growing list of reasons to resist with all we've got. Once again, the March primary looms. Early voting in the primary starts on February 17th, 11 days from today. See the show notes for a Texas 2026 March primary ballot form from the Texas Tribune that you can use right now with your home address to see who's running in the primary in which you choose to vote. Everything you need to know about voting at govotetexas.org. Again, this year we must be super careful with our own personal voter registration. We're excited to see you this weekend, starting tonight and running through Sunday at the Texas Democratic Women's 2026 State Convention at the Austin Marriott South. TDW is celebrating their 39th year, uniting the diverse Democratic women of Texas and growing their participation and influence in Texas politics and government. Proceeds from the convention support the general election campaigns of Democratic women in various races across the state. Progress Texas will be leading a workshop on the use of social media in politics starting at 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, Saturday the 7th. All the details are linked in the show notes. We'd love to see you. Our mission at Progress Texas is to improve and save Texans' lives by acting on our shared, bold, progressive values, and that starts with countering the billionaire and corporate-funded conservative disinformation machine. While we enjoy the support of hundreds of partners, chances are that you, dear listener, haven't joined the team yet. If you're a regular, let's get you on board right now. A huge thanks to Rachel Albers, Lee McAfee, and Ann Catherine Shuddy. We appreciate all three of you very much. Join them and the team at ProgressTexas.org. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Friday, February 6, 2026. Links to all of these original stories can be found in our show notes. Progress Texas is an independent, nonprofit, rapid response media organization. While campaigns come and go, we're the permanent home for progressive media and action in the Lone Star State. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great weekend. We'll see you again right here on Monday morning.